To agree or not to agree? That's today's problem. Ciao ragazzi e benvenuti al 18° episodio di Ask Manu Italiano. Io sono Manu e questo è Italy Made Easy. In today's episode, I am going to talk about a topic that I would call intermediate. So if this is your level, you will love the episode because it talks about the Passato Prossimo, so the Italian past tense. So if you enjoyed last week's show, then you will enjoy this one as well. Also, at the end of this episode, I'm going to read out the phrases that I assigned to you as exercises in the PDF that was attached to Ask Manu Italiano number 16. So if you don't have that PDF, or if you haven't taken the class, I ask you to pause the video before you get to the end. You can watch it now. And then, do the exercise, and then I'll give you the solution in this very episode. To help you out with following along this video and also to revise the information, I encourage you to go to my website, that's easilymadeeasy.com, click on the banner below, /ask018. Anyway, there's a link up there and the thing here. And you will be able to download a PDF that has all the examples that I use, the translation, the explanation, and some exercises. And again, that's it. That's the link. Click. Click, 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 click. Okay. Let's hear the question.
Hello, my name's Ellie. I'm based in the UK and I guess I've been studying Italian off and on for a couple of years now. Could you explain when in Italian the past participle agrees with the direct object? So for instance, I've heard ci siamo visti, where it does agree, and amatevi come io vi ho amato, where it doesn't agree. I speak French and it's different. It would be great to understand how it works in Italian.
Benissimo, grazie mille Ellie. Fantastic question. So it is a difficult topic. First of all, I am not going to discuss with you the Passato Prossimo. If I'm giving you information on the agreement of the past participle, I assume that you know how the Passato Prossimo works. Otherwise, this episode will last half an hour and we don't have that kind of time in this particular series. So, what is a past participle, though I can tell you this? So, whenever we speak in the Passato Prossimo in Italian, which is the past tense, we do what in English we do with the present perfect. So, basically in English you say, I have bought, I have seen, I have gone, she has done, she has worked. So, that's the idea of the Italian past tense. Whenever we say I have done in English, the I have, the have is the auxiliary verb because it's helping what? It's helping the main verb, which is to do, because that's what you did. You have done. Okay, so that's what we call the auxiliary verb. In English, we only use the verb to have as the auxiliary. In Italian, we use two verbs. One is the verb to be, essere, and the other one is the verb to have, avere. But let's see when you should do the agreement thing. So just to give you a few examples of what we're talking about, when I say ieri siamo andati a Roma, that means yesterday we went to Rome, and there is an agreement because andare is to go. The past participle of andare, meaning gone, is andato, but here we are saying siamo andati. So there is agreement between the subject, noi, and andati, because it refers to a bunch of people. So that andati means gone, but it's in the plural. You don't do that in English. Ieri ho visto Maria. Now here I'm saying yesterday I saw Maria, or I have seen Maria. That's what we are literally saying. Now, same subject. Subject is io. I'm a man. And Maria is a woman. It doesn't matter because I would say ho visto. That visto will not change to vista. It will not be ieri ho vista Maria, even if io was a woman. So even if the speaker was a woman, she still would say ieri ho visto Maria. Okay, so don't confuse that. And then there's a third case where what I've just said doesn't apply. So I can say ieri l'ho vista. And vista is now feminine. So why is that? Let's dig in. Allora, here's the solution. When the auxiliary verb is essere, there is agreement. So the past participle changes to match gender and number, okay, of the subject. When the auxiliary verb is avere, there is no agreement. It doesn't matter who the subject of the verb is or what the object of the verb is, we do not agree. So we're always going to have a simple, pure past participle like mangiato, andato, visto, preso, dormito, whatever verb, okay, you're dealing with. Unless, and here's the third case that I'll talk to you in a minute. So, like I said, when the auxiliary is essere, there is always agreement. So we basically always have 4 options. Why is that? Because a subject could be masculine or feminine, singular or plural. 4 options, like an adjective. Sono andato, I went as a man. Sono andata, I went as a woman. Siamo andati, it's at least 2 people or plural of male or mixed crowd, siamo andati. Or siamo andate, which is what women would say if there are no men in the group, then the feminine of we went is siamo andate. So there's always 4 options for verbs when the auxiliary is essere. So other examples would be sono uscito, I went out. Sei uscita, did you go out as a woman? L'aereo è partito, the airplane left, departed. And la macchina è partita, the car departed. Strange example, but just to show you. Okay, next one. Specific case, it's with reflexive verbs. There is always agreement with the reflexive verb because, long story short, reflexive verbs always use essere as the auxiliary when we put them in the passato prossimo. If you want to know why, I'll give you a secret word. They're all intransitive verbs, if you know what that means. So, for example, the verb svegliarsi, to wake up, it would sound like mi sono svegliato, I woke up as a man. Mi sono svegliata, I woke up as a woman. Ci siamo svegliati, we woke up, a bunch of people, and ci siamo svegliate, a bunch of women. Okay, so that's the verb svegliarsi, it's reflexive. When we put it in the passato prossimo, we're using essere as the auxiliary, as you can see, and therefore the past participle has to match. So the example that Ellie had in the question was ci siamo visti. We saw each other. Well, that's from the verb vedersi, to see each other. That's a reflexive verb. Therefore, the auxiliary is essere, and therefore the past participle visti, seen, has to match the subject. Now, the subject is plural because we saw each other. So, without worrying about gender, we went with visti because that's the standard one, unless the subject is women. Okay. Now, second case. So that was the first one when the auxiliary is essere, always agreement. When the auxiliary is avere, never agreement. Okay. Unless, okay. So, lui ha mangiato la pizza, he ate the pizza. So, subject is a man and the pizza is feminine. We say ha mangiato, has eaten. Lei ha mangiato la pizza. Now the subject is a woman, so it's feminine, and la pizza is still feminine. We still say ha mangiato. That hasn't changed. Lui ha mangiato il pane. He ate the bread. Again, subject is masculine, the bread is masculine. We still say ha mangiato. And lei ha mangiato il pane. She ate the bread. Ha mangiato has not changed at all. In the plural, same thing. Noi abbiamo visto Enrico. We saw Enrico. That's a man. And noi abbiamo visto Maria. We saw Maria. That's a woman. It doesn't matter what we saw or who we are. The passato prossimo uses the auxiliary avere and the clean, straight up passato, participio passato, which means the one that ends with ato, uto, or ito, or some irregular form if you know what they are. Like I said, I can't give you an in-depth lesson on a big topic like the passato prossimo. Now here's the exception, and probably I think that's what Ellie was kind of thinking about. When the auxiliary is avere, but there is a pronoun before the verb. In Italian, we put the direct object pronoun, meaning the word like it, you, them, like I saw it, I see them. The place for an Italian pronoun like that one is before the verb. So what happens? When I'm going to tell you this, the reason why, the way I explain it to my students at the university. Whenever we use the passato prossimo in the auxiliaries avere, when I say ho mangiato, well, I don't know what I've eaten because the sentence hasn't finished yet. So the listener, the Italian listener, doesn't have an expectation of gender because you haven't told me what you've eaten, so I don't need to hear an agreement. This is different when the auxiliary is essere. Why? If you as a woman said, ieri sono, let's say, okay, let's use present tense. If you said, io sono, what do I expect as an Italian listener? If you're a woman, I expect that whatever you say after io sono, I am, is feminine. Why? Because you're a woman, right? So if you said, io sono australiana, I would expect the feminine there. If you said, io sono australiano, and you're a woman, I'll be confused as an Italian listener. Why? Because the verb to be describes the subject. And the subject is already clear whenever you've said the first word. When you said sono, it's about me. Whenever you said siamo, it's about us, so you know who us is, okay? Sorry for the horrible English that is coming out in my examples, okay? So whenever we use essere in the present tense, there is expectation of gender and number because the verb describes the subject. When we use avere, there isn't. So when we take this idea into the past tense, the same thing happens. If you're a woman speaking and you want to say that you went, the moment you said io sono, as the Italian listener, I expect feminine because you're a woman. So I expect to hear io sono andata. You see why? I don't know. But if you said io ho, I don't know what you have done. So you could say io ho mangiato, because whatever you're thinking, I don't know what you're thinking. So there is no grammatical expectation from an Italian standpoint. I know it sounds really weird, but because in Italian we grew up with gender in the language, we have expectations of when something should agree or not, right? So why does this case happen? Why does the agreement happen here? Well, because whenever I put a pronoun to replace something that was mentioned before, I am telling the Italian listener what I'm talking about before I say the past tense. So, if I say io ti ho visto, that ti means you. So if you're a man, the moment I say io ti ho, you have, literally, the moment I say seen, I know that I've seen a masculine object. So io ti ho visto, because you're a man. But if you're a woman, I would say io ti ho vista. Why? Because the moment I've said io ti, I've told the Italian listener that I'm talking about a woman. So I want the agreement to happen. Io ti ho vista, I've seen you. Tu l'hai mangiato, you've eaten it. It being something masculine. Otherwise, if you've eaten something feminine like pizza, then I would say tu l'hai mangiata. Because whenever I use the pronoun, I'm telling you I'm speaking about the pizza. So that's what's happening. Li hai mangiati, you have eaten them or you ate them. And le hai mangiate, you have eaten them or you ate them, where them is feminine plural. Let's see why and what happens here. Because I understand it's confusing. If I say ho mangiato il panino, I'm talking about I've eaten a sandwich. Now, the way I replace the panino with it in Italian is lo. That means it, for a masculine object, singular. So, I will say io, which I don't need to say, lo, which means it, and then ho mangiato. Now, what happens actually that we're not going to say lo ho mangiato because it's hard to say two O sounds, so we'll just say l'ho mangiato. Now, let's look at the feminine. If I've eaten an apple, io ho mangiato la mela. The way we replace la mela, the apple, with it, in English it's the same word, but in Italian it's la, that means it for a feminine object. So, I will end up with io, which we don't need to say, la ho mangiata, because that la is telling you already that I'm talking about an apple. Now again, we don't say la ho mangiata because that sounds awful. We'll say l'ho mangiata. I've eaten it. L'ho mangiata. You have to make these abbreviations, okay? They're not optional. If I've eaten sandwiches, Well, the way I replace I panini, the sandwiches, is with the pronoun li, which means them for masculine plural. So I will end up with li ho mangiati, io, li ho mangiati. You cannot shorten this one, okay? When you speak, you might probably hear it in a shortened version like l'ho mangiati, maybe. It's incorrect. So li ho mangiati. Them I have eaten. Mangiati has to match the them that I've already told you what it is, which is masculine plural. So that's panini. And if I've eaten the apples, then the way to replace the apples is with the pronoun le. So I will end up with le ho mangiate. Le ho mangiate. Them, the apples, I've eaten. So it's like saying the apples, I've eaten them. That's what it kind of sounds like to an Italian listener. So that's when you must have the agreement. Perfetto, so that was it for today's episode. I hope it helped you understand when you need to have the agreement with the Passato Prossimo and the past participle, blah, blah, blah. Again, if you need the PDF, and why wouldn't you, click on the link below or in the card up there and be taken to the website where you get to download the PDF. But now, as I promised, we have something else to do. In episode number 16 of Ask Manu Italiano, we talked about natural pronunciation, and we talked about merging vowels and words so that they sound good to an Italian listener. Some of you didn't like it. I got messages saying, I don't like it. Okay. You can't choose. That's the problem. If you want to speak like a native speaker, these things happen naturally. No Italian has ever stopped to think, oh, I'm going to chop that vowel. The reason I explained it that way is that because you are learning Italian, you probably don't feel when it's right to drop a vowel. So that class was to explain to you when and why it would happen. You don't have to do it, but I'm saying if you want to sound like a good Italian speaker, you have to do it, pretty much. If you don't like it, don't do it. But if you want to speak better Italian and sound more natural, then you should do it. Okay, so here's the first sentence that I gave you to pronounce. If you haven't, here it is. And it's a Firenze ci sono molte opere d'arte famose. In Florence, there are a lot of famous opere d'arte, artwork, I think. Yeah, I can't think of a translation now. So that was me pronouncing each individual word, but nobody will ever say it that way, right? Why? Because we speak natural speed, like you speak your language in natural speed. So the way I would say this, I'll try. A Firenze ci sono molte opere d'arte famose. A Firenze ci sono molte opere d'arte famose. So this one, there's not a lot of dropping, is there? So there's only merging of vowels so that they sound like more like one than two. But I didn't really drop much. I'll say it again. A Firenze ci sono molte opere d'arte famose. I stuffed it up, sorry. I'll say it again. A Firenze ci sono molte opere d'arte famose. A Firenze ci sono molte opere d'arte famose. So it's molte opere d'arte famose. So the only place where the merging, the dropping could have happened was between molte and opere. Why? Because molte ends with a vowel and opere ends with a vowel, starts with a vowel. So I could have done that, but e o seemed to flow more naturally in my mouth, so I didn't do it. Everything is optional, really. As long as it sounds good. Okay. This one, mi potresti inviare quel pacchetto? Could you send me that parcel? You have a go? Okay. I'll say, mi potresti inviare quel pacchetto? Mi potresti inviare quel pacchetto? One I disappeared. Why? Well, because potresti ends with a vowel and inviare starts with a vowel. Why would I say mi potresti inviare? No. So I'll say it again. Mi potresti inviare quel pacchetto? Mi potresti inviare. One word. Mi potresti inviare quel pacchetto. Ieri sono arrivati Lisa e Marco e abbiamo ordinato una pizza. So yesterday, Lisa and Marco arrived and we ordered a pizza. Ieri sono arrivati Lisa e Marco e abbiamo ordinato una pizza. That's bad Italian. Because we don't break it up, right? So, ieri sono arrivati Lisa e Marco e abbiamo ordinato una pizza. Ieri sono arrivati Lisa e Marco e abbiamo ordinato una pizza. Okay? So I'll try to drop it while I was still being slow. It's really hard because it doesn't make sense to drop a vowel when you're being slow. So I'll say it again. Ieri sono arrivati Lisa e Marco e abbiamo ordinato una pizza. Now, I could drop the abbiamo, that O, I could drop it. So I could say, ieri sono, and I could drop the O of sono. So I could say, ieri sono arrivati Lisa e Marco e abbiamo ordinato una pizza. So, ieri sono arrivati e abbiamo ordinato. So, one word for sono arrivati and one word for abbiamo ordinato. You getting it? Yeah, getting the gist of it? One more. Se vuoi iscriverti in palestra, va oggi. If you want to enroll in the gym, go now, go today. Ok. Se vuoi iscriverti in palestra, va oggi. Se vuoi iscriverti. So this one I had to drop because I really find it difficult to say se vuoi iscriverti. That double E, I hate it. Se vuoi iscriverti, se vuoi iscriverti. There's only one E. Se vuoi iscriverti in palestra, va oggi. And finally, domani porto i bambini in spiaggia. Tomorrow I'm taking the kids to the beach. Ok? Domani porti i bambini in spiaggia. Domani porti i bambini in spiaggia. This one is the one that you hated the most because it does create confusion. Because if I say porto i bambini, it's clear that the subject is I, io. Because porto means I bring or I take. But if I blend it, like I just did, and I say domani porti i bambini, it sounds to you that I'm saying porti, which means you bring. Well, you have to trust the context. Who's speaking and who's got kids to take to the beach? Me. Okay, so you will have to go with the context. But believe me that Italians won't get confused, so you can do it because they won't get confused. As long as you're doing it fast. If you're doing it slow, it sounds like the thing that you don't want to say. If I was saying this slow and I said, domani porti i bambini in spiaggia, then I've just said you bring. Obviously it's wrong, right? Okay, so yeah. That's it for now. Allora, I hope you enjoyed the show. There's a few more episodes in season 1 of Ask Manu Italiano, so if you do have a question, I encourage you to go ask it, still on the italymedisi.com website. And if you enjoyed this video, I ask you to consider to give it a thumbs up, to share it. It really helps my channel grow and it helps this content to come out to you. And if you don't want to miss it, you can always subscribe and watch all the other episodes of Ask Manu Italiano by checking out the playlist over there. Ok, that's it for now. Ci vediamo presto. Ciao ciao.